Hello and welcome to a new trip report here on the channel. We are at Frankfurt Airport Terminal 1, and full transparency, Frankfurt Airport is one of my least favorite airports, but when traveling with Lufthansa, as we will today, you'll often fly through or from Frankfurt. I do, however, also feel like my skepticism towards the airport is justified, as it's certainly not for a lack of chances to do well, as I regularly pass through the airport, but it seems Frankfurt is determined to solidify its bad image. But before I lose myself in my dislike for the airport, let's give it another try and see how things go today. As I'm already checked in, I can head straight to security. Well, I'd like to, as the queue for security is so long that I'm actually not sure if I'm in the right queue or not. Well, turns out I was, but the entrance to the security check has now been closed, and all passengers are instructed to head for a different entrance where there is start quote, no queue at all, end quote. So let's head over to the other entrance. Yeah, that no queue situation, I guess, is a question of interpretation.
Well, that was as bloody awful as you could expect from Frankfurt. I mean, the security staff was actually alright. But I mean, if you put all lines in one line, I guess no one can complain that there is no fast track, because everybody's in the fast track. Frankfurt.
So, not the best start, but surely things can only improve from here. On our flight today, we will be heading from Frankfurt to Dublin, and as the Republic of Ireland isn't inside Schengen, we need to head through passport controls, which is where we encounter the next substantial line. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the problem with the lines that go too long is that you might end up in the wrong line, as the signage that would inform you where to head to is too far away. And that is in fact exactly what happened here. Luckily, I had a hunch and risked leaving the queue, which I found out also led to passport control, but a different one than the one I would need to use. Now, if you think I'm being overly critical of the airport, then let me assure that I am speaking from experience, and Lufthansa, as the main airline at the airport, fully agrees with me, as the airline regularly has public spats with the airport over its awful service. But we want to enjoy our trip, so let's head to something the airline has much more control over than the parts we have experienced so far, and that is the lounge. Lufthansa, of course, has a multitude of lounges throughout the entirety of the airport, some more frequented than others. The non-Schengen lounges are, however, seldom as overrun as their Schengen counterparts, which certainly improves the overall experience for travelers. A variety of non- and alcoholic beverages and various hot and cold food options are available. One item that, however, never changes at the Lufthansa lounge in Frankfurt are the Frankfurt sausages. Of course, the lounge also offers a view over the airfield, although that isn't the best look. That is much better. So with some food in my stomach, it's time to head for our gate, which is where I encounter the next obstacle, and one of the dumbest situations I have ever come across. And in that instance, it's not entirely the airport's fault, but actually the airlines. As we are flying to Ireland, a further document check is needed at the gate, and the sensible procedure is to check passengers before they enter the waiting area. The staff for the document check is also ready, but the gate crew that arrives late does not want passengers to enter the waiting area until they have fully prepared for the flight. But why? So now passengers are just piling up in the hallway for absolutely no reason. Finally, after a ridiculous wait, the waiting area is opened, but after minutes, passengers are informed that the flight has been moved to a new gate.
I mean, there are comedy shows, and then there's Frankfurt. Well, new gate. So the whole waiting procedure and not letting people in. That was all for nothing. So now we're making our way to the new gate B27. Let's see how things go over there.
All this is of course happening while passengers were still having their documents checked, and now all checked and not yet checked passengers are mixing again. The very much subpar performance of the gate crew unfortunately continues at the new gate. The situation isn't helped by the once more challenging airport facilities, but missing clear instructions on how passengers should proceed during boarding just once more solidify my view on Frankfurt Airport. It's not so much that one thing is a massive annoyance, but it's just that every step of the way you are met by inconveniences or the ever so delightful Frankfurt Airport staff way of dealing with passengers. This constant barrage of things that just don't work properly accumulate and can take the fun out of a trip for even the most hardened traveler.
Thank you. Oh my god, what a mess. I mean, why make things simple if you can make them incredibly complicated? All right, but I think we've gotten through the worst now. Now we can just focus on the flight that hopefully will be enjoyable. I mean, I don't know what to say about Frankfurt, but yeah, let's head into the plane and let's have a good flight. So, welcome to flight LH980 from Frankfurt to Dublin. I can't wait to get out of Frankfurt and hopefully on a nice flight to a much better airport.
The cabin of the A321 is at the current standard of the Lufthansa group, with mostly sufficient overhead compartments, the usual Euro economy seating with minimal padding. It is comfortable enough for most European flights, but above 2 hours it can get a bit tough, although the seat pitch is good as always. As a point of reference, I'm 182 centimeters tall. Power or USB plugs do remain missing on Lufthansa's fleet, but Wi-Fi is becoming available on more and more flights, and now even with a free Wi-Fi option, although if of much use remains doubtful, but a step in the right direction. As often when traveling, I have had a very early start to the day, so I catch up on some sleep while we taxi to the runway and start our journey to Dublin. The crew seems to be having fun, which is always a pleasure to observe, as it also has a positive effect on the overall atmosphere on board a plane. And once in the air, service starts. Gone are the days of complimentary food and beverages on board Lufthansa flights, although you do still get a free bottle of still water, which is a big plus in my books. Should you feel the need for something more substantial, then Lufthansa offers a wide range of snacks, meals, alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages at fairly reasonable prices, as reasonable as it gets above 30,000 feet, but no, it's not cheap. Something I don't really want to blame the airline for because it is really difficult to spot, but still supremely disgusting, was the gift of a previous passenger that I came across in the board menu. Another inconvenience when it comes to Lufthansa's onboard menu is the tendency of flights not having sufficiently items stocked, which means items not being available is unfortunately a regular occurrence. Luckily for me, the IPA on offer is available, so I give it a go. Not too bad for an IPA, and certainly the first IPA from Germany I've ever had. Perhaps my first nap wasn't long enough, or it's the IPA, but I need another round of shut-eye while we are closing in on the Irish capital. Now, the flight experience overall isn't some massive revelation, but the crew did a good job on the flight, making passengers feel welcome. The fact that Lufthansa has improved their Wi-Fi offers and now even include a free option is a small but good step in the right direction, but the overall travel experience suffers heavily from Frankfurt Airport's once more very poor performance.
So, welcome to Dublin. What can we say? Quite the experience. Frankfurt was doing everything it could to convince me of it still being awful. The flight was rather uneventful, but the crew did a great job. So now I need to head through immigration here at Dublin, and then I'll make my way out of the airport and try to do some spotting in the coming days. Those videos will also appear here on the channel, so keep an eye out for that.
And with that, we have come to the end of this journey. Thanks so much for having traveled with me from Frankfurt to Dublin, and see you on another trip here on the channel very soon.